let me ask about on the one particular technology that I've been learning a lot about, thinking a lot about, talking about, which is Bitcoin or cryptocurrency in general, but Bitcoin specifically, which a lot of people argue that the Bitcoin, that setting ideas aside, when you look at practical tools that governments use to manipulate its people, is inflation of the monetary within the monetary system.
Yes.
And so they see Bitcoin as a way for individuals to fight that, to go outside those specific government controlled systems, and thereby sort of decentralizing power. You know, there's a case to be made historically of the 20th century that you couldn't have Stalin, you couldn't have Hitler, you couldn't have much of the evil that you see in the world if they couldn't control the monetary system.
You couldn't have had the New Deal. And FDR realized this very quickly.
That's why he confiscated all the gold. Everybody knows FDR is going to come to become president and to confiscate the gold. So one of the mythologies, the myths about the Great Depression, is that there were all these bank runs bank runs happened because everybody was afraid that FDR would get elected, confiscate the gold. So everybody ran to the bank and took the gold. Little did they realize that he would confiscate their private holdings in their own backyards. He would force them to dig up the gold from their own backyard. But yes, one of the first things FDR did, in spite of denying it throughout the campaign, right? He was asked about this over and over again and denied it. One of the first things was take over the gold and take the United States, the Federal Reserve, off the gold standard so that they can, in a sense, print money and that he could start spending.
What people don't realize, just to clarify what Yaron said, is FDR, this is something that's so crazy to us that we think, okay, I'm misunderstanding it. FDR made it illegal for people to own gold unless it's like a wedding ring. And before that, contracts, because inflation was a concern, I make a contract with Yaron, right? I said, okay, you're either going to pay me in $1,500 for my work or the gold equivalent. Because if that $1,500, Weimar Germany, and you have hyperinflation, I don't want that $1,500. Just give me the gold bullion. And FDR said all of those clauses, he broke every contract. They don't matter.
Yeah.
So now, if I say, Yaron says, okay, you owe me 3 feet of drywall, and I go, here's 3 feet of drywall. It's 12 inches. And you go, wait. 3 feet is 36 inches. You go, no, not anymore. It's like, what am I supposed to do? And because when you print more money, the value of every individual dollar matters less, it becomes that much harder to plan anything, either in the government level or in the private level. Because if I'm managing outlays, if I'm trying to pay my workers, I'm trying to build factories, I'm thinking long term, and I don't know what this dollar is going to buy in 10 years, that puts an enormous incentive for me to spend it now and not save it. Because if I save it, it's going to be worth a lot less. And the worst thing about inflation, and this is something I think people who are pro-capitalism don't talk about enough. They do talk about it. I would just like to see it more. This by far hurts the poor, the poorest of the poor, the most. When we came to this country, my mom told me they would go to 86th Street in Bensonhurst with the fruit stands to buy Mikochka some grapes. And you go to this fruit stand, and she'd walk all the way to the other corner. And if it was 3 cents more a pound or less a pound, she'd walk all the way back because that 3 cents mattered. Now, if I have this dollar and it's 5% inflation, whatever, and next year it's 95 cents, me and you, the three of us, might not care. But if I'm destitute hand to mouth and I've got 5% less, that is really a material consequence of my life. So inflation really is evil because it hurts the people for who those pennies matter.
Well, one of the ways the government gets around that, and is because they get smart to that, right, is they index everything, right? Yeah. So they index your Social Security, they index welfare, they try to make sure, but that only makes you more dependent on them. Right. And the people in the modern context that saving hurts the inflation hurts the most are savers, people trying to save money. And Fed policy right now is just horrific if you're a saver, right? Because the Fed the interest rates are zero, you get nothing on your saving, and cost of living is going up, maybe not at a huge level, but it is going up, and yet you can't even save to keep the value of your dollars. So
and here's the other,
and the government controls, like, and this has massive perverse effects because it's not just that prices go up, it's that prices don't reflect reality anymore. So some prices go up, some prices might not.
Yeah,
investments get distorted, things get produced that shouldn't get produced, and then people like Richard Wolff turn around and blame all the distortions and the perversions and the crashes and the financial crisis on capitalism. Not on the fact that the Fed, look at the financial crisis. Financial crisis was caused, you could argue, by inflation. And we could get into that if you wanted, but that's probably a 3-hour show, just that, right? It was caused by the Federal Reserve. And yet who got blamed for the financial crisis? Who would Richard Wolff is going to jump up and down? This is a crisis of capitalism. This was caused by capitalism. But capitalism is the negation of the Fed. Capitalism says there should be no Fed. That's item number 1 on the list of the things capitalists want, is to get rid of the Fed and then grant you guys your wish. Have competition for currency, and let's see if Bitcoin wins. I'm skeptical, but I don't care. My point is, under freedom, I don't care who wins. I just want free choices, and let the best currency win. I doubt that becomes Bitcoin, but it doesn't really matter. If I'm wrong, great.
Let me add to this, and I think people appreciate, and this is a leftism at its best, that the government and the banks are in bed with each other. This, I don't think, is a particularly controversial statement.
Well, I don't like that statement. Let me just say why I don't like it. And then I don't like it because it assumes that they're equal partners or that there's causality goes in both directions. From day one, and this is really from day one of the establishment of the United States, banks have been regulated by the state. And the reason for that is primarily Jefferson and others, founders, distrust of finance. So from the beginning, banks are being controlled by the state. Now, over time, if I'm controlling you, you won't have influence over me because I get to. So yes, they get into bed over time. So I don't like it that they're in bed together. One is dominating over the other, and the other is participating because what choice do they have?
I should explain to you how things work when you get to bed. In bed, it's not always equal.
Well, okay, so
let's talk about safe words,
wait.
which is a very Randian topic.
Safe
she doesn't
words.
like those. You read the fountain. I had to read that scene 3 times in the Fountainhead because I couldn't read what I was reading. I was like,
Sure you did.
yeah, no, because I'm like, I looked at the back cover. I'm like, a woman wrote this book in 1943. I must be misunderstanding the scene.
43.
Yeah,
She sure had a lot of shades of gray.
yeah. So no, she hated that. Only black and white. No, but what I meant is 2008. Right, you have the bailout of Wall Street. Whereas in 2020, we saw every medium and small business under the sun go under. There's not even a pretense that these are going to be bailed out. So the priorities of the politicians, in my view, are always going to be towards powerful entities, powerful corporations, and they're not going to be about the medium guy, the middle guy. Let me just finish my point because I see you champing at the bit.
Yep.
At the very least, if you have regulation, people influencing each other. With Bitcoin and with crypto, that is not a possibility.
Yeah.
You do not have any agency who is king of Bitcoin, who is the Federal Reserve of Bitcoin. There is no organization management team. Now, you could say this is a bad thing, but you can't say that this is a different thing to money as opposed to Federal Reserve system.
Yeah, so I agree with that description of Bitcoin, my problems with Bitcoin and elsewhere. Let me just say about the financial crisis. It's I don't like it phrased that way again. They let Lehman go under and destroyed Lehman Brothers.
Sure.
In the past, they destroyed Drexel Burnham because they didn't like Michael Milken. They are vindictive.
Yes.
It's not an accident that the Treasury Secretary at the time was an ex-chairman of Goldman Sachs, not Lehman Brothers.
Yeah.
And Goldman hates Lehman. And, and the next day they bail out AIG. What I got out of financial crisis more than anything, and by the way, there wasn't a bailout, so it wasn't even a bailout because they gave money to every bank, whether they had problems or not.
Sure.
And indeed, I know several bankers, including big banks like J.P. Morgan and Wells Fargo, and a friend of mine, John Allison of BB&T, who told them explicitly, "We don't want your money. We don't need your money. We don't." And they were basically, a gun was put to their head, and they said, "You don't take the money, we'll shut you down." Basically, right? The equivalent of that. And so they wanted a virtue signal. So there's a big virtue signal. We're taking care of things. Don't worry. We've got everything under control, even though they were completely panicking and they had no clue what they were doing. One of the things that the financial crisis really illustrated was how pathetic, ignorant, and incompetent the people at the top are, and they knew it. And they, so Paulson goes to Congress, says, "Give me $700 billion. Don't tell me how to use it because I have no clue. Just give it to me and give me authoritarian power to do it any way I want." And that was not out of a sense of grandeur. That was a sense of panic. He had no idea. He had no clue. None of them did. They bailed out everybody they could, everybody under their, within their periphery. When they thought it was appropriate, they were vindictive about some people like Lehman. It was complete arbitrary use of power. The bankers didn't benefit from this. Indeed, many bankers that took their money lost from it. Bank stocks got crushed after the bailout. Before the bailout, bank stocks were doing okay. And right after TOP was announced, bank stocks crushed because this was bad for banks. It wasn't good for banks. This is just central planning gone amok. It's not them bailing out elites. It's them, throwing money at a problem without knowing what they would actually doing and what the consequences would be.
Right, but the point is, where we agree, the focus will always be on bailing out elites. It's almost
but little banks got money too.
No, I was saying that last year there's no talk of saving Ice and Vice, saving Century 21, saving all these other industries.
But sure they were. If you look, sure there was. If you look at what the Fed did, the Fed was bailing out third, fourth class businesses in all kinds of areas that you wouldn't consider elitist areas. The whole PPP,
You're talking 2008.
Yeah, no, I'm talking about now.
Okay.
I'm talking about COVID last year. What the Fed did was unbelievable. The kind of bonds that they were buying, even 2008, even after 2008, I couldn't believe what they did last year. PPP, the Payroll Protection Program, was targeted at everybody. Everybody got PPP. It's not about, I don't think it's about bailing out elites. It's about securing their power base. And if they believe that securing their power base is Wall Street, then they'll bail out Wall Street. They believe securing their power base is writing checks to restaurant owners all over the country. They'll write checks to restaurant owners all over the country, which is what they did with PPP. It's all about power for them, and it's whatever will achieve power, whatever will result in power. I don't think it's about elites. I didn't see elitism in the bailouts of last year.
I agree.
Bailouts.
I agree. It wasn't last year. I'm saying that's one distinction between 2008 and 2020. And I do think just one more thing.
Yeah.
I do think getting in good bed with the elites is a great mechanism in general for maintaining one's power.
Oh yeah,
Yeah, that's not disputed.
depending on how we define.
Of course, yeah.
Yeah, absolutely.
You mentioned there's some criticism towards Bitcoin. There's a lot of excitement about the technology of Bitcoin for the resistance against this kind of central state pursuit of power.
So that's part of my criticism, because I don't think it works. So yeah, I can imagine a world. I'd love to see a technology evolve where money is competitive and it's a financial instrument that the government cannot touch.
You think the state is too powerful?
I think two things. I think right now, and maybe this won't be true in the future. Right now, I think crypto is it cannot function as money right now. It just can't.
But it does.
No, it doesn't. It functions as a mechanism. It functions as a mechanism to transfer. It's a technology that allows me to transfer fiat money from place to place, but it doesn't function because it's too volatile.
Wait.
So
I've sold things with Bitcoin.
No, I know you have,
money?
but I can sell things. I can buy things and sell things with my airline miles. There are lots of ways in which you can use things as money, but it doesn't make them money. So
if you're using something as money,
so let me
it's
take
money.
something you no.
Okay.
So let me take something you said before, and it contradicts, I think, Bitcoin. You said one of the things about money is that it's stable. I know what it's going to buy tomorrow, right? This is why we're against inflation, because I know what the dollar today. I can plan, because I can't plan. I don't know what Bitcoin's going to be worth tomorrow, so I can't plan with Bitcoin. So Bitcoin is way too volatile to serve right now as money. Now, the argument from Bitcoin is yes, it's still being adopted. At some point, it'll reach a certain crucial mass.
Hyper-Bitcoinization, yeah.
Yes, and then it will become money, because at that point it can be used as money because then it'll have a stable value. Maybe. Right now, it's not useful as money, because I can't predict I can't invest in it knowing what the value will be in 5 years. Right now, it's an asset. It's not a monetary unit. It's much more functions as an asset. Assets value can go up.
Oh, I agree. It's functioning much more as an asset than as money. That's not in dispute. I agree with that completely.
So I don't think it's money. But I think it's still. I think it can compete as a money with something tangible. So I think in a free market, some kind of crypto backed by gold would be more successful.
So Bitcoin folks argue that Bitcoin has all the same fundamental properties that does gold. So it's backed by, there's a scarcity to it, and it's backed by proof of work. So it's backed by, physical resources. And so they say that's a very natural replacement of gold. So it doesn't need to be connected to gold.
So the two things that gold has that it doesn't have. One is gold is not finite. Gold supply actually grows over time. Bitcoin at some point is truly finite.
Yes.
At least unless you count the fact that you can split Bitcoins and create coins. But but that's a whole other question, right? So that's one. The second is that gold has value beyond its use as a currency, beyond its use as
For
money.
jewelry and stuff.
Yeah, but you minimize that. But jewelry and stuff has been important for the human race for 100,000 years. You can find jewelry in caves. For the cavemen, designed jewelry and wore them. So we obviously, as human beings, value jewelry a lot. And almost all jewelry evolved to be made out of gold because whatever it is within us is attracted to shiny gold in particular, shiny objects generally. So there's something about gold that appeals to human beings. There's some value that gold has beyond its being a currency. It doesn't. It's not that Bitcoin doesn't. Now it's not enough to use it as money. Lots of things appeal to human beings, but those are two characteristics: one, that it's not finite, and second, that it is a value beyond that Bitcoin doesn't have.
Don't you think the finiteness could be framed as a feature, the scarcity of Bitcoin?
No, because I think it creates a real problem with scarcity economically. It's the issue of planning. There is a mechanism. There's a beautiful mechanism in markets that, as the supply of gold is in a sense the quantity of gold is, prices are going down because there's too little gold, right? So the value of gold, in a sense, in dollar terms, so prices are going down. What happens then is there's an incentive to then go mine for more gold, right? Because it becomes cheaper and cheaper to mine as the price goes down. So you mine for more gold. So it keeps increasing and it keeps increasing, basically very correlated to the rate of increasing productivity. That's the beauty of gold mining, because it's because prices are related to gold. Gold is the dominant money, and it increases at about the same rate as productivity. So it keeps prices relatively stable. You still have bouts of inflation and deflation, but it keeps it relatively stable. With Bitcoin, it's finite, it ends. Now prices will only decline. What rate will they decline at? They decline at the rate of productivity increases. It's hard to predict at the rate at which productivity increases. For example, technological shocks can change that dramatically. You could get bouts of dramatic deflation, dramatic price drops that could be problematic in terms of planning, the same problem of inflation just reversed that you had before. So again, that it's a technical issue. I'm sure there are ways to get around it. And again, I'm not sure. I don't know if you guys consider Bitcoin the end or the beginning. That is Bitcoin it, or is Bitcoin just the first example of a technology that might evolve?
I was just going to say,
I don't know.
There's the same technological issue with regard to gold, which is we now have the technology, though it's very expensive, to turn elements into different elements. And you could fire electrons at it or whatever, you can make gold. They figured out how to do it. It's not cheap, and it's a whole big process. Right? If gold is the standard, a lot of resources are going to be going toward turning other things into gold, making the production of gold cheaper, and that's going to have a similar consequence that Lauren's talking about.
That's kind of the category of security that Bitcoiners talk about, that it's very difficult to do that with Bitcoin. Right. But I would argue that it's exceptionally difficult to do that with gold.
It is now, but the thing is, there's not a huge incentive. If gold is the basis, and if gold is worth that much,
but gold isn't worth that much. Gold is worth, let's say,
I'm saying in this world that we're talking about.
In the future, yeah.
Gold is not going to be worth more. Let's say right now gold is about $2,000. It's less than $2,000, but let's say it's $2,000. That's its price in terms of in dollars. So it would have to be worth your while to create something of $2,000. How much would you be willing to put into it? At some point, you're right. And at that point, I think gold stops being money.
Right.
Because it's useless. Once I can create it like sand, like silicon, then once I can make artificial gold. So I'm just not. I don't think Bitcoin is the solution. I think. I don't know what the solution is. I wish I was that innovative, but I think you need a solution that has more of the characteristics of gold than Bitcoin currently has. And I guess I'm surprised at a lot of the technologists who view Bitcoin as the end game, where it strikes me as it represents the birth of a new technology. And who the winner in that technology is going to be, we have no clue. Yeah. Bitcoin is one of the players. There are other players. There might be a new technology that is even better than anything we can imagine right now that So Bitcoin doesn't strike me as optimal, and that we should be moving towards something better.
Can you please stop shilling Rand coin for 5 minutes?
Yeah.
There is you know where there was Rand coin? There was Rand. So
South Africa.
No, I was.
Their currency is the Rand.
That's
Yeah.
true. No, I mean
Ayn Rand is the
coin.
South African $1. Yeah.
The Ayn Rand coin I was in China in 2015 or 14. What's that?
China.
I was in China 20, something like that. And this entrepreneur came up to me. She said she's bought this massive quantity of land in this area in China. It's a little secluded. She's starting what she's calling Gold's Gulch. Right? She's serious. And she issued cryptocurrency based on the land, right, backed by the land, called Rand, but Ayn Rand, with a little portrait of Ayn Rand, a little portrait in the marketing. Ayn Rand. I don't think it went anywhere.
You're not going to be a janitor?
A janitor in China at Gold's Gulch. Yeah.
By the way, I do want to point out something I do enjoy about objectivists. I constantly talk about Ayn Rand and her vampire novels. And that's the joke, Yaron. Thank you. And inevitably, someone feels the need to point out that she did not write vampire novels, and her name is actually Ayn. So thank you, Yaron. Thank you, Yaron. We've been talking for 2 hours. I own her copy of The Fountainhead. Somehow I thought her name was Anne. Thank you. Anne is an anthem.
So this is really interesting way of phrasing it, which is...
I was kidding with the Ayn. I know you knew how to pronounce it. Yeah.
I know you know that
yeah,
you know.
It just got confusing.
I think we all know, and we all know that we're jokers
We're
here.
all one.
Yeah. There's no Batman in this
There's no
conversation.
zeros, you're rolling ones.
So that's an interesting way to frame it. Is Bitcoin the end or the beginning of something? And I've, as sort of with an open mind and seeing kind of all the possibilities of technologies out there, I also kind of thought that Bitcoin is the beginning of something. But what the Bitcoin community argues is that Bitcoin is the end of the base layer, meaning all the different innovations will come on top of it. Like, for example, there's something called Lightning Network, where it's basically just like gold is the end. And everything is built, like the monetary systems, like cash and all that is built on top of gold. Bitcoin is the end in that other technologies are built on top of Bitcoin. That's their argument. And
I get that, and I hear that all the time. And I don't quite understand that. And I think Bitcoin has limitations that potentially other cryptocurrencies might not have. My attitude towards something like this is, to a large extent, I don't understand the technology. My view is, let it play out. I think I have more fear of the ability of the government to crush these things than I think many in the community. So, for example, I gave a talk, Bitcoin, and they were hyping the acceptance now. A lot of vendors are willing to accept Bitcoin, and this is great. And I said, yeah, it's absolutely great. More options is better than fewer options. But I said, that could be taken away like that. Now, it's true that we could exchange Bitcoin and the government wouldn't know, or I think wouldn't know that we do. But once he's advertising on his website that he accepts Bitcoin, or once he tries to turn his Bitcoin into particular goods, once you manifest it in the physical world, now the government can step in. So the government could say, you can't sell anything to anybody using Bitcoin. They can do that, and you won't be able to sell it. It will have to go into the black market.
But that is able to sell it. It's just selling in the black market.
Yeah, but that's where the government thrives, right? The government thrives on letting you do stuff in the black market so they can decide when to put you in jail or not, right? Yeah. So if I'm buying a sweatshirt from the government, if I'm buying a sweatshirt from somebody using Bitcoin, the government can't monitor my exchange of Bitcoin to him. Yeah. But they can monitor the sweatshirt being sent to me. Right, that's where they can interfere, and I think that at some point, to the extent Bitcoin is successful, it will be stopped. That is, and that's what'll stop it from becoming money. See, money can only become money. It can only become money if people are using it as money, right? And if the government can stop it being used, if I can't go to the grocery store and use my ATM that charges on Bitcoin or whatever, then it's not money. And I think that the government is going to step in and stop people from doing that, and that's what I have more respect and fear for the power of government today.
I don't see that at all. However, I could be wrong, and I'm sure Yaron hopes he's wrong.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And in
I
some
hope the
sense-
government just give in and,
Yeah, yeah.
and the Fed tomorrow says, yeah, let Bitcoin thrive.
What-
But I think that want to regulate and control it. And the only way to regulate and control it is to stop it.
Yeah, there's a bunch of people who argue that Bitcoin is too compelling to argue to government that they'll actually embrace it. Like
But that
Trojan
assumes
horse and
government
stuff.
has positive goals and wants to do good things. You can ask, you can,
No, it's greedy. They say government is greedy because they, well, Bitcoiners have this whole lingo. They say number go up.
government is not greedy. Government is not greedy for money. Government is greedy for power.
Power, yeah.
Government is greedy for control. Government is much more. Now, money's good too. They'll take the money if they can get it.
sure.
But it's
Means
not
to an end,
fundamentally about money. It's fundamentally, and this is something that many libertarians don't understand. This is something many of the Bitcoin community don't understand. They have far too benevolent a view of politicians and the people in government today.
By the way, I'm
and I
aligned
know
with
why
this.
he's laughing. I think I know why he's
You
laughing.
know exactly why I'm
Yeah.
laughing.
And we should get to that issue at some point here. But so I think there's a lot of naivete.
Yeah,
there.
there's a
Speaking
lot.
of
There's
naivete,
A lot of it, Yaron.
No,
Okay.
I'm not
All right.
naive.
Okay,
I'm
let's-
I'm actually providing the warning, and
Naive-
all these Bitcoiners are saying, no, government doesn't function that way.
No one says I'm naive. Naive people think they're not naive.